So this is a reprint of the very first stock I ever owned. I wish it said Amazon or Netflix. Unfortunately, it says mp3.com, which is a company you've never heard of because the company went bankrupt and the stock is now worth zero. I'll talk more about this in a little bit. It comes as no surprise, I'm sure, that it's harder and harder to achieve financial independence in retirement. It used to be that the system was engineered to pull people into retirement through things like affordable education, housing that's affordable, pensions, that sort of thing. Nowadays, the risk of achieving retirement is all borne on each individual. And I think it's really important to understand that the way the wealthy achieve all of their gains is by taking advantage of the fact that the system rewards people who take risk. And in order for you to achieve retirement, one of my biggest pieces of advice is you have to enter the game that the wealthy are in, take the risk so you can reap the benefits. Now, I sort of see this whole path toward financial independence in three large stages. I'm going to talk about those today. So stage one is the stage I call the earn and learn phase. You're probably early in your career and you're making some money and you maybe are going to start getting into the equities market. A couple of key points I want to make here. One is, if you recall from my previous video, one of the most important powers that you have is the power of time. The earlier you put your money in, the more power that money has because it has longer to appreciate. And so when you're early in your career, you really want to focus on maximizing your income because the more you can then divert into your assets, the more you have that multiplier effect. So focus on your career, focus on promotions, maybe even doing some side hustles, that sort of thing. At the same time, you have to make sure that you're also getting into the system through this learn phase. And the key thing here is that you're going to make mistakes. And this is the mistake I want to tell you about. My first equity I purchased was mp3.com. It was very early in the dot-com boom was going on. And I thought, well, I list to MP3s. There's this company going public called mp3.com. I guess I'll buy some of that. Very, very naive. The stock totally tanked. And unfortunately, I didn't learn from this experience. Rather than saying, maybe I shouldn't get into individual stock picking, maybe I should diversify, I actually avoided the stock market for the next 15 years. And that actually has a big impact on what I could have had in terms of my financial outcome. Now, in retrospect, it actually worked out in some ways because I diverted into the real estate market, and that's done well. And I have a whole series of videos I'll do on real estate in the future. But learn from my mistake. The key thing here is you're going to make mistakes, but you're a bit like a toddler. You don't have a lot to fall down on. The key thing is to get back up, stay in the market, and you will eventually get the benefit of that time of appreciation. Now, the second stage here is the stage I call sow and grow. You've heard the term, you reap what you sow. And the key thing I want to emphasize here is that you now probably have a decent enough portfolio, either through your 401k or your brokerage funds, or maybe you have a rental property, where small actions are actually big decisions. And I'll give you an example of that in a second. But you're probably here at the point where you're very focused on your career right now. You're in the peak of your earnings, maybe you're at a management level, that sort of thing. But don't forget the fact that you're now managing a pretty sizable portfolio. And those small decisions have big impacts. Let me talk you through a story here. So wind back to February 2020. We all know what's about to happen in March, right? Big lockdown. I had a friend of mine, let's call him Chuck, for lack of a better word. And we're having a beer and he tells me, I've done analysis and this coronavirus is going to metastasize. We're going to hit lockdowns. I think the whole economy is going to grind to a halt. And he told me he actually exited a huge amount of his portfolio from the market in preparation. Well, of course, he was totally right. I didn't do anything. I didn't action on that advice or anything. And he was totally right. And my portfolio went down by a lot. And I was logged into my brokerage account thinking, should I sell, cut my losses? Is it going to get worse? But fortunately, this time, I thought through my decision. I said, no, let me not make a knee-jerk reaction. I don't need any of this money for another 20 years. And so instead, I decided I'm not going to log into this account for the next 6 months. Let me avoid the temptation of having that emotional impact on me and potentially making a bad decision. And as we know, the market rebounded. It's now stronger than ever, maybe a little too strong. But that's just a good example where in this stage, small minor actions, I could have taken 30 seconds to log in and click sell. That would have had hundreds of $1,000s of impact on potentially my portfolio. So be very conscious in that sow and grow stage that you're not making knee-jerk decisions that are going to ruin you down the road. The last stage I want to talk about is what I call rest and-vest. Now, this is the nirvana stage where you have enough assets that can support your lifestyle without you necessarily having to work. And when I say rest, I don't necessarily mean, quit your job or anything like that. In fact, the way I approach this, for instance, for me, the priorities of my job now are, do I enjoy the people I work with? And do I enjoy the nature of my work? If both of those things are stimulating and keep me engaged and waking up in the morning, I'm happy with my job. I'm no longer chasing that next promotion, that next company that will give me more money. That's no longer my priority. And it really has a big impact on how you view work when you're in a rest and vest stage. Now, the other element here is on the vest side. You now have a sizable portfolio of assets. And what you now have to think about is that you've achieved a major milestone of basically financial independence. And you want to make sure you don't walk backwards on that and have to not be financially independent anymore. So as you look at your sort of risk appetite, a key element in this stage is really asset preservation. So you're not necessarily needing to look at doubling your assets again because you've achieved an amount of wealth that sustains your lifestyle. So you might need to think about things like really diversifying or maybe even reducing some of your risk to make sure that you're not going to walk backwards on that lifestyle, right? So that's it in a nutshell. And I guess my key takeaway on this is that time moves slowly. And what you're going to find is that as you go through these stages, you might not realize that you've transitioned from one stage to another. And my key advice for you is to make sure that whatever stage you're at, make sure your behaviors are appropriate for the stage you're in so that you can achieve a nice, healthy, financially independent future for yourself. If you liked what you saw today, definitely appreciate it if you want to make comments on the video or even email me. I'm at robeguy@therobeguy.com. Would love to hear from you and hope you have a good day. Thanks.